All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Third Banner Pod. Welcome tonight. We've got a great episode for you. We've got, in about 5 minutes, we've got Sports Illustrated's Ross Dellenger coming on the line tonight to talk conference realignment. Some big news over the weekend with Brady Allen's commitment to Jeff Brom's Cardinal squad. And tonight on the show, you've got the host with the most back in action, back in the saddle. I'm Ash. After a few weeks hiatus here. So I'm glad to be back and joining y'all. But we got Kyle, Ross, and Josh, and let's take it off, guys.
All right. Well, hey, earlier this week on Monday morning, I had made a comment and I said, it's going to be a tough pod this week. There's just nothing to talk about at all. And I think Ty Elliott, who's usually on here, had made a comment. He said, I don't envy anybody that's on this week. I'm glad I'm not on because he had other obligations. And I said, yeah, man, I don't know what we're going to talk about. And I'd say about 2 hours go by. All of a sudden, ACC conference realignment rumors start really ramping up. Ross Dellenger, who's joining us later, and Brett McMurphy and a couple of others had scoop after scoop, and it just got crazy. And then all of a sudden, Brady Allen finally pulls the trigger. I was starting to wonder about that one. We hadn't heard anything for a while. I think Brom was kind of evaluating that as what people were saying to see, like, hey, do we have a spot for him or not? But it worked out for us. It worked out. We've got a lot to talk about tonight.
Yeah, looking forward to it, guys. This is going to be an exciting show. Glad to have Ross Dellenger coming on to join us here in a few minutes. Not excited about all this conference realignment stuff. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I've kind of been realignment fatigue over the last decade. Tired of seeing all that speculation every couple of years pop back up, especially with the supposed Magnificent Seven and that. So this is definitely interesting times, but I'm not super enthralled with all this news. I kind of was hoping we'd have a little bit of stability for a little bit, but it doesn't look like the case.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, that's why we're bringing Ross on the show tonight. Because if anybody's going to know, it's going to be him. He's credible. He's got a really great track record. For being for his credibility. So, that's exactly why we brought him on the show for everybody to hear tonight. I'm really looking forward to hearing what he's going to say.
Yeah, I'm with you, Ash. I think the last time conference realignment came around, we were in a lot different position. And, now with us already being in the ACC, conference realignment's not the fun game that it was last time where we had the potential to go to the ACC or go to the Big 12. So I'm with you. Hopefully Ross can calm some of those nerves. And if not, it is what it is. We're just going to have to go with the flow on it.
Yeah, the thing about conference realignment that is so scary as a Louisville fan is we're not in the position of some big schools. We're a tweener type school. Now, we obviously love our university, but it's like a chessboard where you don't have control of the pieces, and you just have to hope that your piece lands in the right spot, or it's checkmate. And I'm not a chess player, so don't be getting into chess technicalities. I'm just saying. Long story short, we do not control our own fate. Something as simple as a San Diego State move to the Pac-12 can all of a sudden create a higher revenue for those schools. And then all of a sudden another conference starts to feel like they have to, up the ante, and it becomes, this pissing match, for lack of better terms, where you're trying to get these schools. And it's a tug of war for some of them. They've got multiple options. And then all of a sudden it trickles over to us. And it's like, where do we end up? And you just never know. We can end up in a better situation, which I think we did with the ACC and the Big East both. But we were damn close. If people don't remember last time we did this realignment dance, it did not look good for a long time. There was a long period where we got left at the altar with West Virginia, and we had two senators. I don't know if anybody remembers this. We had two senators going at it on Twitter.
Yeah. McConnell was going after, was it Manchin?
McConnell and Manchin were going at it.
Yeah.
About who deserved the bid to the Big 12.
Wow.
And we didn't even think the ACC was an option then. I mean, nobody did. It was like,
Yeah.
no, we've got to get in the Big 12. It's Big 12 or bust, or we're in some deep shit. And sure enough, we got lucky. But for a while there, when West Virginia took that spot, we were like, oh, where do we go? We go back to CUSA? What do we do? So it
Yeah.
is a very, some people that are maybe younger or maybe don't follow realignment as much, they may think, well, man, people are talking about this a lot. And it's kind of like, is it really going to happen? Trust me, when it happens fast, and it is the priority. It is the conversation we need to be having, because all this other stuff that we do, the position that Tom Jurich and all these others put us in to even be where we're at today, the NIL offers and the NIL stuff that we've got, the resources, all of it depends on being in a position to be in a really good conference, a competitive conference. So that's something that we're definitely going to be talking about with Ross when he gets on here later, trying to get some clarity on what exactly is going on with all this.
Well, at least
Yeah.
we haven't seen any posts from West Virginia's the dude. You guys remember that
Yeah.
always popped up around conference realignment time.
He
Yeah.
might be
And
the one that passed away. One of those guys
Oh,
passed
really?
away recently. So
Yeah,
I don't
I
know if
hadn't
it was the
seen
dude
that.
or somebody else, but I
yeah,
saw
and there was
that.
that Yoda guy too.
Oh, yeah, I remember that too.
Yeah. So, who was the guy? There was another. Was it Swain that was the guy that was all over everybody's boards, the Big 12 boards, that was always talking crap?
I don't know if he was talking crap or not, but I know Swain was a name from about 12 years ago, that 12 whenever that last major round happened that involved us, and he kept just throwing stuff against the wall hoping something would stick. And no, I mean, I know he said recently that it was rumored that we are now the 8th team to join this magnificent 7, which I guess means we're the outstanding 8. But I don't think we'll ask Ross when he gets on here. We'll see what he has to say. I haven't heard anything credible from anybody saying that we are definitely an 8th school. So without further ado, though, speaking of Ross, he's waiting right now. So I did want to introduce him. He is the national college football writer for Sports Illustrated. So without further ado, thank you for joining us on a Third Banner pod, Ross. How are you doing today?
Good. How are y'all?
Doing well, man.
Doing
We're
well.
excited to have you on, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, excited to be here.
Conflicted, confused. We don't know what to think as Louisville fans. I'm following your Twitter like crazy, man, your articles. And I guess basically we were just talking about how, all this stuff comes out with the Magnificent 7, and they're negotiating for several months behind the scenes for, better positions and better conferences as far as revenue. And then all of a sudden, within a day, the ACC leadership and ADs, they all meet in Florida. And is this something that, do we think this was posturing just to get a better leverage within the ACC, better revenue, or do we think that this is something that we're going to have to really keep our eye on for any moment where these schools could jump ship?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say. I think that there was a time maybe a few months ago where this was probably more realistic, of them actually thinking about, dissolving the league, or just finding a way out together. They met probably about, at least 4 or 5 times over the last, I guess, 6 or 7 months, together separately to talk about this issue. I think that it kind of fizzled out over the last few weeks and in months. But I do think there probably were some that were happy that it was made public, because it did seem to expedite the revenue sharing issue, the change in the revenue sharing model. But I do think for a few months it was pretty serious. And I'll say that while I don't think the 7 will continue to pursue any kind of dissolution or anything, it definitely doesn't mean that some of those schools in the 7, are going to stop trying to figure out a way to get out of the grant of rights. They just need a home to go to, and that's kind of the situation right now.
So Ross, hypothetically speaking, it sounds like, we don't have anything to worry about necessarily in the near term, but hypothetically speaking, if there was to be some musical chairs there, how do you see Louisville positioned? Like, are we an attractive school, or have you gotten any kind of a sense of that, of where we're at?
Well, you've got bourbon on your side, so there's that.
That's
You
fair.
know,
That's fair.
that's a plus. No, I think when you look at the landscape of college athletics, Louisville seems to fit one of two leagues, and that's either the Big 12 or the SEC. I think that, and you saw a lot. I think over the last couple of days, you saw kind of a lot of reports and stuff about the Big 12 and Louisville. The Big 12's probably got the best basketball league in the country right now, and Brett Yormark, their commissioner, I think is pretty adamant about continuing to expand and continuing to add value to the basketball value that's already there. And Louisville certainly would do that. So that makes a lot of sense. And obviously the footprint that they're in the surrounding schools makes it where the SEC would also make sense. The problem with that is same problem that Clemson and Florida State would face with the SEC. Without getting too detailed, a conference gets a certain more amount of money from TV when they're in a state, when they have a school in a state, and so the SEC really wouldn't get more money from TV shares because they're already in the state of Kentucky with Kentucky, and they're already in Florida with Florida, and South Carolina with South Carolina. So the SEC more so, I think, probably would be more interested in new states. But of course, part of all this is that they'd have to get out. Obviously, Louisville would have to break not just one contract, but two. You have the grant of rights, and then you have the ESPN contract that runs alongside of it and kind of coincides it.
Sure.
Let me ask you something since you brought up the grant of rights. I don't know how well versed you are in this per se, but say that the grant of rights, they are able to get that changed, or they're able to make any amends to the current contractual obligations that all the schools have to the conference, right? Or even this revenue model that they're gonna possibly try to amend. If they do that, does that open up the door and just make everything null and void?
No, it does not. And I don't know really what would, because there was a thought that adding teams and expanding, changing the membership number would, but I think that enough lawyers have looked at it to realize that is not the case either. In fact, if you read the bylaws, which I had the awful pleasure of doing this week, one of the lines in there says that any new member must sign on to the grant of rights, and of course then would be the TV contract. So I don't know how it would really open unless the parties all agreed to open it, which you'd have to have the majority of the schools, I believe, and then you'd have to have the big one. You'd have to have ESPN, and ESPN is not in a situation to open up a deal that's very advantageous for them. This deal was made, and it's very, very good for them. And I don't know that they in the middle of laying off people, in the middle of other contract negotiations. We got the CFP coming up. You got I think they're doing WWE, UFC stuff. NBA's coming open. So I doubt, they would really open up that contract. And Jim Phillips, ACC commissioner, and a few of the league presidents did meet with ESPN. It was either March or April. I think, their situation was discussed, but again, ESPN is not a charitable organization, so I don't think they're going to be opening things up.
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to ask about a couple of I like to separate what's real from what's kind of BS because on the internet people can make an account, drum up thousands of followers if they say something absolutely insane, and I know you will be able to kind of help us through the weeds here. So there seemed to be this collective idea that if there were 8 schools that oppose the current grant of rights, that's my first question. I'll ask my second question after. But is that the case that if an 8th school stepped up, that would all of a sudden change the game as far as the way the grant of rights is holds up?
Yeah. I mean, there's a belief. It just first of all, it all depends on what lawyer you talk to. So lawyers are interpreting the bylaws, and they're interpreting it in different ways. Some lawyers might say you need 2/3 or 3/4 majority. Some say you need just a simple majority, which would be 8. Um, Nobody really knows, and if in the bylaws are 163 pages, and nowhere in there does it talk about dissolving the league except in 2 places. It talks about dissolution of the league. The problem is it doesn't say how the league would get dissolved. It doesn't go into detail. So the thinking by some, those who wanted to dissolve the league, would be like, oh yeah, we just need a majority. The thinking by others, right, would be no, you need a 3/4 majority or 2/3 or unanimous. So the thinking was 8, I think, by some, but again, it's an issue, just like all these issues, not just dissolving the league, but when you dissolve the league, does that really let you out of the ESPN contract? ESPN doesn't think so. Those trying to dissolve the league probably think so.
Okay, and then my follow-up question to that is, there was a lot of viral activity from one account in particular, but that was saying that Louisville had joined the 7 and became the 8th school that was going to oppose or I guess look at alternatives to the grant of rights. Can you say if you had heard any of that substantially or not?
I did not. Again, so this process has been going on for, I would guess at least 6 months, and they've had probably at least 5 or 6 meetings, the 7. And in those meetings, in those groups, Louisville was not a part of, from what I understand.
Okay.
And things started fizzling out, like I said, as we got closer to this spring meetings. And so I wasn't necessarily aware that, within a matter of 2 days at meetings, Louisville all of a sudden became part of it. I don't know that that's really how it works.
I figured.
I would question that.
I know people wanted to know though, so
and
that.
and all this stuff, like I said, I don't necessarily expect the 7 to like keep secretly meeting or whatever, really. But schools are going to continue to talk about pathways out. Maybe they won't do it together and with some kind of plan to dissolve the league, but they're going to keep talking, I'm sure. And I'm sure Louisville probably will be one of the schools talking about that. Out of the 14 ACC members, I'm guessing that all but 4 or 5 of them probably has a value enough to go to another league, and so would be discussing these things. So the conversation's kind of ongoing. I don't know that we have a set, there's no like charter drawn up with a certain amount of schools and you're in or you're out,
Ross, let me ask you. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead,
Ross, let me ask you. So, like 10 years ago, when we were doing this, or just over 10 years ago, what was it, 2012, when all the big conference, the last big shift was happening? It was looking like we were heading towards the model of like 4 big conferences, right? 64 schools and all that. That, with the way the Pac-12's kind of, you got UCLA and who is it, Oregon, that are going to the Big Ten now, and that's looking less like a viable option. Like, where do you kind of see that this will slow down again if and when this does pick back up? It's
Yeah, the realignment wave right now, we just need to, in order for it to stabilize, you need everybody to have their TV deals done. So everybody's kind of waiting for the Pac-12, right? Because everybody else has theirs. So the SEC did theirs a couple years ago, and it's done. Big Ten did theirs in August. Big 12 got into the mix and got ahead of the Pac-12 and did theirs in October, I believe. And then, of course, the ACC's has been done for a while. So it's kind of the last one. And I think yesterday or 2 days ago, Pac-12 presidents had a meeting, and nothing really came out of it except for the Pac-12, probably more bad news, in that the TV deal is not done, and it might not be done. Now they're saying until July or August. Ray Anderson, the Arizona State athletic director, said that. So that as soon as that's done, and if the Pac-12's contract is suitable enough for its members to remain intact and sign a grant of rights, probably short, it'll probably be 4 to 6 years or so, then you'll have some stability, probably. You'll have Big 12 might pick up a couple teams. They're looking at, if they don't get anybody in the Pac-12, they're looking at UConn and UNLV and San Diego State and maybe SMU a little bit. And then, the Pac-12 will pick up a couple teams like San Diego State and maybe SMU. Now, if the Pac-12's deal isn't good enough, and you have a couple of Big 12 teams or a couple of Pac-12 teams go to the Big 12 because the TV deal isn't good enough in the Pac-12, then you really have a domino effect that could kind of span throughout the country. And that was a lot of what my story on Monday was about, is this could be a really busy summer if the Pac-12's deal doesn't get done, because then you could imagine, Colorado, Arizona, maybe Arizona State, and Utah going to the Big 12. That's what the Big 12 has targeted anyway. And then you could see the Pac-12 potentially crumbling at that point, in Washington and Oregon being in a desperate situation and crawling kind of to the Big Ten, and the Big Ten maybe letting them in, maybe having a group at Stanford and Cal too. And then if the Big Ten gets even bigger, then I think the ACC situation becomes a little more of an issue. I think the panic already in the ACC would get even more panicked. And if the SEC sees that the Big Ten has grown to 20 teams, maybe it responds in some way. And maybe that's when ACC teams challenge the GOR. So there's kind of like one of two ways it can go, for somebody who would like a quiet summer. I'd like it to go with the former, but we could be looking at another busy summer if the Pac-12 TV deal is not to the liking of its members.
Okay, Josh, I saw you had one question, and we want to be mindful of his time. So, Josh, you want to ask Ross?
Yeah, I got 5 minutes. You're good.
Okay.
Sure. So this is a real quick one. So, with the rev share getting so much, the gap between like the ACC and the Big Ten and the SEC just furthering, the Big Ten and the SEC are going to be making so much more money per school. What can the ACC do? I mean, do we have any options, outside of just straight renegotiating? Because I just feel like that's going to be we're going to be so far behind here in just short order. Do they have any plans for trying to bridge that gap at all?
Well, they've been working on it. There's just not there's not a real good solution. And like I said earlier, Jim Phillips and the presidents met with ESPN, but just not a good time to get more money out of ESPN. There was talk, and I think we reported at SI about this thing. It was in August, so it's been a while, and I haven't heard much about it. But there was going to be some kind of, maybe, I hate to use the word alliance, between the ACC and the Pac-12 with their TV networks, and maybe that was going to produce some more revenue. But, in the end, I think they did a lot of data and research and realized this just isn't worth it. Um, I guess it could conceivably still be alive in some way. So they've tried different avenues. And then, of course, this revenue sharing model, right? So you've got a change in the revenue distribution. So teams that do better, more successful on the court or on the field will get a bigger portion of the pie. The problem with that, and there's a lot of problems with that, but right now the ACC, like most other conferences, cuts the pie into 14 equal slices. And if you give somebody a bigger slice, with this revenue distribution model calls for, you have to take some away from the others. And that gets real tricky. It can divide a league and make
Yep.
things really divisive. And we've seen that before with conferences like the Big 12 and Texas. So as one SEC athletic director told me, if the ACC does the merit-based revenue distribution unequal model, it'll be the beginning of the end. And that might be the case, but they're certainly trying things. It's just it's pretty difficult right now to do.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it sounds like ACC is kind of in a situation where kind of damned if they do, damn if they don't, right? Like some schools probably want to introduce the merit-based model because they want to get all the money that they can get now, right? Because they feel confident where they stack up in the conference. If you don't do that, those members are going to be upset. But then if you go the merit-based model, like you said, it's going to make things more divisive for a league that's trying to have trust in each other to stay together. It just doesn't seem like it's. I couldn't imagine 10 years ago the ACC was going to be on such rocky footing. I just could have never saw this. I swear.
Yeah, and if you go back and look at what happened, of course, the deal was just too long. But they felt like, I think back in the day, they felt like they had to do it to create the ACC network, which is part of all this. I'm sure if they had to go back, they probably would hold off on the ACC network for a few years and sign a shorter deal. But yeah, that's the position, and it's kind of damn if you do, damn if you don't situation right now with the revenue sharing model, because this has been about 6 to 8 months of discussions over the revenue distribution model, and they presented 3 proposals back like in January, February, I think, for a different revenue distribution model. And they finally are making progress and voting. It sounds like maybe next week the presidents are going to vote on it. But it's taken a lot of time. It's taken a lot of moaning and groaning, and it's taken a story publicizing about the 7. And that tells you that there's a lot of schools that didn't want to do this. Probably 7 of them. The other 7 probably did not want to do this because they're going to be the losers here. They are. And Louisville's probably right on that line, right? If you look at, I don't know, the success metric of basketball and football, I'm guessing Louisville's right on that line. I would just guessing, right? Like Louisville and like NC State, would probably be lately Miami. I would probably be on that line, So, but like the Clemsons and North Carolina certainly, to an extent Duke with basketball, I guess you could say, they're going to be making a lot more, 2 or 3, 2 to 5 to maybe even 7 million more annually if you succeed, do everything, kind of check every box. But again, in the long-term aspect of this, that's not going to close the $30 million gap. So it's one of those things where you're going to have to probably do more with less until you can leave with a home, until some of these schools have a different home, maybe, which for some might not ever happen.
All
One
right.
of the things that I wanted to bring up is like from my personal, and I'm pretty jaded about the whole realignment process just from some personal experiences I've had. But like, one of the things I wanted to mention and see if you agree is that with the tiered revenue models, almost 100% across the board, every league that's employed those, it creates distrust amongst the league members, and creates a lot of unrest and a lack of harmony amongst the league members. And just about every league that I know of that has that tiered revenue model. So what were your thoughts on that as well?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and going I mentioned it earlier, but like, I think about the Big 12 and Texas and that situation, that did not go real well, and obviously we see kind of like how it ended, and it divides a league. It does, and like I said, if you do have more CFP, the expansion, so you have more money coming in. You have new money coming in, but that money would normally be, distributed to everybody evenly, and now it's not. And so we're in a situation in college sports of a fight for revenue and money, and the gaps that are forming are fairly wide. We're talking about the gap between the ACC as a conference and the SEC Big Ten, but you're going to end up having gaps within the ACC. You already do, but you're going to have them more now. So, how is NC State or Louisville or Boston College going to take it that they're getting $2 or $3 million less a year, and that money is getting pooled and going to the powerhouse football programs in the league.
Sure.
It doesn't make for a real good environment, and that's why I think that one AD told me it's the beginning of the end if they go this direction.
Well, and as soon as one of whichever team gets in the highest tier, every couple of years they start coming back to the well. I mean, if you look at the West Coast Conference or the Mountain West, like Gonzaga and Boise State, every couple of years they start renegotiating that tier, and threatening to leave the league. And it just always creates a lack of harmony amongst the league, in my opinion. And I just have never been a fan of that. I mean, it led to the end of the Big 12, at least in the structure that we knew it as. And I just would hope that they would not go to that model in the ACC.
Yeah, I think it's probably done, unfortunately. And I think next week it sounds like they're gonna approve some stuff. I believe on Tuesday the presidents met on a call and outlined some things, and so I think it's heading that direction, and they're not going to be alone. The Pac-12 is probably going to head that direction with their new grant of rights too. They're going to end up being a merit-based system, and you're going to see that in the CFP too. You're going to see the way the CFP distributes money to schools and conferences is also going to be performance and merit-based, which again, we're just growing the gap between the haves and have-nots in college athletics, and everybody can see the end of where this is going to finish in 10 or 20 years.
All right, you guys do me a favor and follow Ross Dellenger if you're not already on Twitter. He's the realignment guy I follow. I've been following him since before I knew he was going to be on the show. So Ross, I'm happy you got to be on here, man, because there's nobody else I'd rather have on here. I'm not just kidding, man. So I appreciate you taking time, and you guys follow him. Thank you for being on here, and appreciate you, man.
No problem. Anytime. Keep that Connor in check. All right.
I'll try. Yeah. No
Good luck.
All right, guys.
Hey,
See
Ross.
Yeah.
Ross, from one Ross to another. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
We got to stick together. There's not many of us.
That's right. All right, y'all have a good one.
Thank you.
All right. So, hey, he told us what we needed to hear.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us were thinking that, we're not in a good position.
But,
We're not. And that's what's got, I mentioned it, when in my comments to Ross that I'm a little bit jaded, but I'll expand up. I didn't want to take up too much of the time while he was on. But when I was, an administrator at Cincinnati in 2016, after we made our pitches to the Big 12, we thought we were in. I mean, we were spending money at that point in time in our department, our expenditures were on par with other Power Five leagues schools. We were spending money like we were already in the Power Five, and we really thought we were going to get an invitation to the Big 12 in 2016. And when that kind of pulled out from under us, it was like everybody saw the writing on the wall, and it was like rats abandoning a ship. And everybody just started looking for other jobs because they knew that not getting into one of those Power Five leagues, it was just a matter of time before payroll started getting cut. And they cut their staff almost in half within 2 years after that didn't happen in 2016.
For
So,
sure. Yeah.
I was a little bit jaded by the processes just from that personal experience. And I look back on that and compare it to where Louisville is right now. And with basketball being in the shape that it is, and not just because of the record, but if you look at the crowds are pitiful.
Yeah.
If our crowds were still really good, that would be something that we could point to as being a indicator of being able to turn it around quickly because of the revenue that was still coming in. But right now, we're not selling tickets. We're not bringing people into the house. So there's not a way to spin that performance right now when we start pitching our programs to other leagues. So it's kind of a very frightening period for me.
Yeah. Well, I do kind of I want to talk about some of the key points that I got out of it and see what you guys thought. But obviously, we're not hearing anything about us being the ACE school. That's not surprising. All of a sudden, within 2 days, we just jump on board and we're the ACE school after they've been doing it for months. We didn't really think that, but there were people that jumped on that rumor, and so we wanted to dispel it. The thing with the Pac-12 was the most interesting part to me, the domino effect. So it basically sounds like if you're wanting to have stable ground to remain on for a little bit, even if it's like a divorce where you're living with your soon-to-be ex-wife, and you just don't know when the court date is yet, and you're just kind of waiting it out, but you at least know what you're doing. That's kind of like us in the ACC. Nobody seems to really want to be there. At least half of the teams don't. But it is a stable ground, and it sounds like the Pac-12, we need that deal to formalize. We need everybody to be in agreement and feel comfortable with it, and that like the teams get what they're looking for. Sounds like if they don't agree and it gets pushed back, then they start getting poached, and then the ACC is we're already very vulnerable, but it becomes a very immediate vulnerability if that happens. So basically, long story short, what I got out of it is we're going to be okay for a little while, and then it's going to hit the fan down the road, or it's going to hit the fan very soon. That's what I got out of it.
Yeah, that's pretty much, because he made it seem like that their TV deal, that he was kind of expecting them to kind of go to that merit-based system as well, right? And as he clearly stated, and Ash has even said, that just doesn't work for long-term, stability. It just rustles too many feathers. It makes people feel unequal, and it's, this school shouldn't be getting this, we should be getting more. So it seems like this is going to happen regardless. And if, Kyle, you've made a good point before. You're like, what's driving all this money? Like, money's driving all this, and people want the money. So the haves are going to try to get after more of the money. It's just how it is, So it's like, if you're really looking for, I don't see stability happening at all. It's just going to be, like you said, it's going to be now or it's going to be later. Just wait.
Yeah. I think in the short term, I feel good about it. Like, at least, we're not going to have to do realignment at this immediate moment. But long term, there are a few things that worry me. If the Pac-12 was to dissolve and the Big 12 took a bunch of those schools, and all of a sudden the ACC starts doing the same thing, are we going to have a seat at the table? Are they going to be full? And now we're just kind of left holding the bag. So that's one thing that worries me. The other thing, obviously, is basketball. Kind of like Ash mentioned, attendance is down. That's really our staple historically. the good news is we do have Jeff Brom. He's very motivated and turning the ship. And football drives realignment. I don't think that's a hyperbole statement, right? So hopefully Jeff Brom can start righting the ship before all this happens, and hopefully it's enough to get us an invite if and when that we need that.
House, you're absolutely right. We need to win. Winning cures everything. You're right, man. I mean, we need to win, but I'm just hoping it's not too late. It depends on when this ball rolls. If it starts rolling in the summer or early fall, we need time, but it is what it is. Louisville Go Cards. I hope you all know. Yeah, I won't talk about any other channels, but I will say we will not ask for your money. We don't do that here. So we just appreciate you guys are on here. We're just starting up as well. And I want to talk about that for a second. Ross Dellenger and last week Brad Powers, those two guys, they have nothing to gain by coming on here at all.
Nothing.
We have currently like 130 something subscribers. We started this 2 months ago from the ground. And when I say the ground, I mean, I was hardly using Twitter until we started this. And I just appreciate that guys like Ross Dellenger are willing to come on here. I mean, he's a national dude. He's arguably the top realignment guy. I mean, he wrote a big piece revealing all of this. And so it's just like, I appreciate it because there's nothing he has to gain. And Brad Powers last week, he has nothing to gain. What's he going to gain? A couple of Louisville followers from here, maybe? All of us obviously went and followed him. But I mean, these guys are just doing a service out of the kindness of their hearts. So we appreciate that. Obviously, Connor hooked us up with the connection to Ross. So we appreciate that, Connor. Wish you could have been on here tonight, but I know you had other stuff you had going on. So with that being said, to kind of get back into it, yeah, man, I think I don't envy Josh Hurd's position. I will say that some of us feared this exact situation and the lack of experience. I'm not saying he can't do it.
Right.
But he's not. This is a beast he has not tackled. So hopefully he's ready. And I mean, I don't know. I can't answer that question, but I am a little bummed that we're not one of the 7 teams that are trying to get the hell out, because to me, they sound pretty damn proactive.
Yeah.
And if you have that many teams, I guess my thing is if it was a couple of teams wanting to get out, it's like, okay, whatever, man, good luck. But then once it gets up to about 4 or 5 teams, I'm at that point, if I'm hearing about it, I'm like, well, shit, I need to get on that boat. I need to get on there because that leaves what like, I don't even know how many exact teams there are, 14 or 15, I think, in the ACC. But once you get up to about 5, you're talking about a third of the league, and it's probably the big players that are disgruntled, which it is. And at that point, I'm either trying to get on board with them, and if they're not going to let me on, then I'm trying to get the hell out. I've got to do something.
Yeah.
And I mean, I hope he is. And I mean, obviously,
you got to have a landing spot.
Bros on a pod don't have the damn answer, but I just hope that he, in the position he's in, knows what he's doing and is working back channels. That's all I can say about it.
Yeah. The one thing that we don't know is like short term. How long is short term, or how short is short term? You know what I mean? We don't have like a time frame. Like the fact the fact that they were talking for months and months and nobody really knew this until this week, that's kind of telling in itself about where those 7 members are, that they were able to keep that quiet. It sounds like Ross was, I don't know when he caught wind of it, but he definitely knew, at some point. But if the Pac-12 doesn't get their stuff together and say that it opens the door like he was possibly alluding to, right? So if that happens, even on a short term, you're looking at probably at least a couple of years. For Louisville, for us, that might be just long enough to get us back on in the table of good graces where we have some negotiating power,
If we have that amount, but here's the way I would be working it. I'd be working it like a deal could happen tomorrow, because I mean, hell, did any of us know about when OU and Texas until like right before? There were always rumors Texas was upset with like Ross Dellenger mentioned earlier. and I keep using his last name because you're Ross, so I want to differentiate Graybeard from Dellenger.
Oh, Gray
so,
Bush.
so when he was on earlier, I mean, he alluded to Texas and how they weren't happy, but I mean, we had been hearing that for so long, and then all of a sudden, just bam, and it's like, so we don't know. Like you said earlier, it'd be nice if we had a time frame, but we don't. So when that happens, you have to operate from the belief that it could happen any day.
Yeah.
And that's very unfortunate because performance-wise, we're not quite where we want to be. Certainly not in basketball. And football, I think, can get there pretty soon, fairly soon, especially with the way we've been killing recruiting. Obviously, the Brom staff coming in. I mean, we feel great about it, but man, I mean, we don't know. I mean, if it happens now, we better have some sort of argument. And I mean, I've seen some stuff shared about the revenue and what we generate TV views wise. We're not in a bad spot, I feel like, but and Dellenger, he referred to it earlier a little bit, and he said, you guys are hovering right around that 7th or 8th spot to get, and that's typical Louisville athletics during conference realignment. We are right on the damn line every single time,
Yeah.
and it can teeter one way or another. We are like trapeze. It's just like walking the tightrope during realignment. You're either and you're close to the end, but you could fall off at any moment. And I mean, for anybody that wasn't in here earlier, we were talking about when we last went through this and got in the ACC, it was a nightmare because we had senators from West Virginia and Kentucky, McConnell and Manchin were going at it on Twitter
Biting
about that final Big 12 spot because that looked to be the only position we had, the only lifeboat. And those hillbillies from West Virginia, sorry, I don't like West Virginia. Still don't like it today. Those hillbillies got that spot, and now they're on an island. I think it's hilarious, but that's in hindsight because we ended up sneaking into the ACC. But at
Just
that
remember,
time,
it's because their band was bigger. They had a better band.
Yeah, that was their argument. Well, we have a bigger band. It's like, I don't care about your stupid band. But anyway, we
My
thought
only
we were
fears about the
screwed.
Big 12
I remember
is
the
there's
board.
some-
I remember the message boards were a hot mess. I mean, we all thought we were screwed. This was before like Twitter really took off like it is now. I mean, it was becoming a thing, but it was it was a hot mess, and we didn't think we had a lifeboat at all. And then all of a sudden, the ACC granted us one. But we are always right there, right on the cusp of either taking a positive step or being thrown into the shadow realm. And I mean, it's a scary thing. That's why realignment is such a heavy topic. And you're going to hear about it every time it comes up because it's a chess piece and you're a piece on the board and you have no control over. Well, you have some control. You got to work back channels, but I mean, it depends on how the dominoes fall. Like you do not hold all the cards in your hand. So it's a very tricky situation.
Yeah. It's kind of like you're playing spades. You know what I'm saying? Like you need to be able to talk across the table. Oh, yeah. Okay. You need to. Okay, you're not supposed to talk across the table, right? But you need to like kind of feel confidently how many books your partner has across the table from you. But you can't say. It's like so you need to have those partners on your side. You're basically you're being a politician, essentially.
Hey,
So
Kyle, here's what has me worried to your point of not being proactive. So estimated payouts per school in 2026, depending on which metric you look at, ACC is right around 48 to 50 million. Big Ten, they're right at 90 million, and SEC is at 100 million per school, right?
And that's about to go up, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's in 2026. That's
projected.
It's projected. It's for 2026. But I mean, think about what that's going to do for NIL and recruiting and your facilities. I mean, if they're making double what you are, I mean, we won't be able to compete. Like exactly like Ross D was saying, like the gap is just going to widen and there's going to be haves and have-nots that we just can't compete with.
You're absolutely right. But I think what has to happen, we're not going, I mean, let's just be real. We're probably not getting in the ACC or we're not going to get in the Big Ten because we don't have the AAU certification that they require. I mean, they're not going to take us, and they have no reason that they're not in a vulnerable position where they have to.
Well, Nebraska is not an AAU school either, though.
Right?
Who's not?
Nebraska.
Oh, they're not.
They
well,
broke
they're
that
Nebraska.
rule and they invited Nebraska.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not Nebraska, even though they've been down for 20 years or so. There's nothing
Right.
else to do in that state, so they still live the good times and replay their old reels of when they were actually worth a lick. And they have the supportive fan base, and they probably generate a lot more revenue, unfortunately, than we are. So that being said, we need to be working on a third conference with the best that we can get. And before, I mean, are we going to make what the AC or what the SEC and the Big Ten may? We're not. But I will say this, when they're extending the playoffs like they are, would you rather be in a position where you're playing Alabama, Clemson, Florida State, Georgia, uh, Florida when they're back up, LSU when they're back up, and a gauntlet? Or hey, you could always play Ohio State, Michigan, USC, and all these schools if the Big Ten merges the way we think it might, and all these like juggernaut schools. And it's just like you're going to have teams like Wisconsin in the Big Ten that are going to go 500, who in a league like the ACC as it stands now could possibly win the ACC. You're going to have a school like, I don't know, Georgia or not Georgia. No, Georgia's in a different league. Maybe Alabama in a little bit of a down year, they might lose 3 or 4 games. So, I mean, could we play schools like West Virginia, Cincinnati, Oklahoma State? I don't know. Did Oklahoma State? I see. I get confused. Are they still in the?
They stayed.
They stayed.
Yeah, they're
So
still
Oklahoma
there.
State. There's good team. You're not going to have that upper tier, but I mean, it's a better, like, to me, a third option with the best leftovers possible. We can at least, have a fighting chance to get into the playoffs. I mean,
Yeah.
sure. I mean, and then you know what pisses me off though? I get so jealous. Like, I mean, I know I was talking to IU football fan today. They actually exist. There's not very many. Most of them are Notre Dame fans, but I talked to an IU football fan today, and he was like, "Oh, are they thinking about doing a realignment? Are they thinking about or is there movement going on?" I'm like, "Well, you're a football fan," and he's like, "Well, I don't have to worry about it." Yeah, you're an IU fan. You have nothing to worry about. Like,
Which is crazy.
suck every year. You can just
Yeah.
suck. You can just suck ass every single year, and like you have nothing to worry about.
Right.
Yeah.
My fears with the Big 12 is you're going to have a little bit of animosity from some of those schools we left behind that are now in the Big 12, like Cincinnati and Houston. So they're going to advocate for us. And then
Every man for themselves, man. I mean, they can only
but you have to be able to get schools on board supporting you in order to get the invitation.
Yeah.
If you
Well,
have too many schools opposing, then you're not even going to get invitations. So
I don't think they'd hold that
that's
against us
the
if we
fear.
got an
Now,
invite.
granted,
and
a
they
lot of
did.
those administrations have changed over, but that's always going to be in back of mind.
Here's what it comes down to. It comes down to money. If you can add
Correct.
Louisville and make money, I mean, nobody's going to care that, hey, Louisville got an invite over me. I mean, we weren't going to turn down an invite to the ACC to appease somebody so that hypothetically 15 years later, we have a chance for them to pay it forward with a new. So it's like, it just comes down to money. If Cincinnati thinks,
No, but pettiness can be real sometimes.
Yeah, I mean,
can. That'd be really dumb in their positions. But I mean, you've worked in the field, so you might know a little more about dumb decisions in that line of work than I would. I would
think
hope
that most of the
people
administrations have changed over by now.
I would
know
hope
that's
cooler
a little
heads would
time.
prevail, and they would look at the bottom line dollar. But that's really where we've got to get our shit together on the field and on the court, like
Yeah.
you guys were saying with the, getting fans back in. And I'm not blaming the fans for not showing up when the product's as bad as it was in basketball. I can't justify it because, like we talked about last pod, you're a consumer as a fan. There's no right or wrong way to be a fan other than making it personal and attacking players and coaches. Beyond that, you can be as positive or negative as you want, in my opinion, because you're the customer, as long as you're not being toxic. And it's like, okay, I'm not going to pay for something that's subpar, and I feel like I'm throwing my money down the tubes. I mean, you're loyal to an extent, but at some point, enough is enough for everybody, especially after COVID and the way the economy is. I mean, it's just different times, man. So, like, we got to get people back on board so that we can generate revenue and be looked at as a more attractive candidate in the event something like this comes down. Because like we've been saying, you don't know when it's going to happen. You just
Yeah.
don't know when the dominoes fall, and when they fall, they can fall very damn fast.
What Ash, like you were saying, those schools have had most of their administration flip and turn over, but those administrators and those gatekeepers for their schools, they still answer to boosters.
That's what I was
And
going to say. Is the Linder
yeah,
family? I guarantee has already talked to President Pinto.
like
I
they
guarantee the
they
Linders are already telling them, do not let Louisville into our league.
yeah, I mean they still answer to the people that are donating money to the school, so that is something. I can see that personal angle being very real, but it does go back to money. Okay, like if the Big 12 and the conference members say it's in our best interest for solvency and stability to bring a school like Louisville on, and bring a school like Utah or whoever, to bring them on, then that I would think that that's going to win over personal vendettas, just because Cincinnati doesn't want to go through this again. They know how that feels, right? And like, yeah, they may not like us, but sometimes, you're the enemy of your enemy is your friend, right? So, like they say. So like they may need us. Somebody, I just feel like we're not in the position we were 10, 12 years ago when this was going on. Not anywhere close, but we're still, I think, pretty attractive, just based on the money that we do bring in. And I think that we would be in somebody's plans. I don't foresee us, with how big our athletic department is and our athletic budget. I just don't see how we could be left out. That's the biggest thing for me. So that's just kind of where I go. I just don't. I have a hard time picturing Louisville being left out. I can see schools like Wake Forest or something. I can see them being left out. Their market share is so small. Their athletic department's small. Their booster fan base is small. It's just we've got a lot of positive things on our side, but it is scary to think about. I will say, in this this Magnificent Seven that's been rumored or confirmed, I guess now, I find it really, really hard to believe that Syracuse and Pittsburgh were not part of this, because we saw last time they were the one that caused all the dominoes to really fall. Well, I will say it all really started with Virginia Tech and Florida State leaving the Big East back a long time ago. But, out of nowhere, like I remember it was like a morning or something. It was like a Sunday morning, and out of nowhere it was like, oh, Syracuse and Pitt have joined together and they're going to the ACC, and that kind of like started all this.
Well, if you remember, when Florida State left, Syracuse was supposed to be going at the same time, but they had some internal, disagreements at the last minute that flipped that out, and Virginia Tech went instead. Virginia Tech replaced Syracuse as the team that was going along with Florida State. So,
yeah, I find it really hard to believe that when I heard the 7 schools, I thought for sure Pittsburgh would have been one. Like I really thought they would have been, because they just seem to fit that.
I don't know. Miami. Sorry, Miami.
It also
Miami
depends on where these
Tech
schools think they can. It depends on where these schools think they can go. Like Syracuse is competing with like a Rutgers in the Big Ten, for example, as far as kind of the area. But anyway, if anybody's just now joining or has recently joined us, feel free to listen to it after we're done here. And Ross Dellenger came on about 5 minutes after we started, so about the 5-minute mark, and he has some really good stuff to say. I did want to talk though about some football recruiting, since most of this is centered on football anyway.
That's a really fluffy topic right now, man. We're doing really good in football recruiting.
Yeah, it's always fun to transition from something bad to something good instead of something good to something. I know exactly what inside joke you're throwing in there.
Oh, that was awesome.
And I'm gonna awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna say that Brady Allen, we landed him earlier this week. We were wondering, and I actually started a post on one of the boards and said, Brady Allen, what's going on, man? And I said, we haven't heard anything. And then all of a sudden, like a day later, he commits. And that's great because we have been talking on this pod about the need for a consistent backup quarterback that if something goes down with Jack Plummer where he has to miss some substantial time, I don't know about you guys, but I didn't feel very confident. I think Pierce can be good in due time, but I think, he had an injury in spring. So this was big because Brady Allen, he has the arm that none of these guys have, including Jack Plummer. He has the potential. He has potential as a passer beyond what any of these other guys have. Now, he's not known to be a runner with the football, but he does pass it. And I mean, we do have I'm going to see if I can share some highlights if we can get the overlays to look right. Ash, and I'm going to work on sharing the screen, and we're going to watch some highlights. And I'll talk about it to anybody that listens who's maybe on who maybe listens to this later on Spotify. But
diarrhea.
His comeback game.
Okay.
I've been playing World of Tanks for years now, and I still can't get enough.
There we go.
Look at this guy.
There we go. Yeah, look at that, bro.
Dude looked like his hair was set on fire.
I know we joked about the quarterback room a lot, with some of the comments in the Discord over the last year and a half or so, but I actually think we're going to have a good quarterback room going into the fall.
Yeah,
so we are, man. Jeff Braun's a beast. Anything that looks like a spin, he feels it.
Portal God.
But I mean, look at these throws, man. I mean, they're not like he's not putting much effort into just slinging it. Like he's got an arm. Like he is not exerting much energy on these throws.
No,
I mean, he's got some pop.
I mean, that was perfect right there, right in the bucket.
Oh,
I mean, there's a reason that this kid was a very highly rated 4-star, composite across the board. He was a top 5 QB coming out last year, in the class. I think he was like a top 75 or top 100 player, composite ranking, 247, I think. I mean, the kid's got all the tools. You never, ever, ever, if you have a chance to get a player like this, you do not turn a player like this down. You take this player. You don't care. This is for the betterment of the program. It's all about the football program. This kid makes you better. He's going to make the competition in that QB room better. Everything, and he's got 4 years. He's got 4 years to play.
And the thing that the piggyback on that point, making, we're trying to always get better and make everyone else better. I know there's some people that have been like, well, Pierce Clarkson's probably going to transfer, or, what's this do for Pierce? Like, guys, you don't pass on guys because you're afraid of other guys leaving.
Yeah, that was like whenever Teddy committed, and everybody was like, well, what about DeMarcus Smith?
I don't think he's afraid of competition. I mean, why would you ever go to a school if you're a good quarterback and be afraid that you're going to have to compete against other good quarterbacks? You think these guys that go to USC and Alabama and Georgia are scared to death of competition? I guarantee Pierce isn't either. And either he will win the starting job eventually, or, he'll sit on the bench for a year or two and he might transfer out. But then if he's sitting on the bench, it's probably because we have a quarterback that's better, doing better. And I mean, that's just how it goes. And I understand the Bosco connection, but I mean, you take the best you can get, man. I mean, and for next year, I feel much better. I mean, look at that throw. Good night. I just feel so much better with him, with Brady Allen as a backup. If Jack Plummer goes down, I feel so much better.
Yeah, I mean we saw today a lot of the betting sites moved Louisville's line from 7 over under of 7.5 wins this year up to 8. I think FanDuel moved this up to 8.5. With a player like Brady Allen, he's now going to be in your quarterback room. He already knows Brom's system. And Brom recruited him. So, he's good. He's a fit because Brom thought he was a fit somewhere else. Like if Plummer were to go down, where you would possibly worry about, oh man, we're going to have a quarterback that's going to be a little more shaky. We've got a dude with all the tools. He's got all the accolades. He's not played, but he's got everything. So I think that boosts some confidence, and that's probably brought some more money on the line for Louisville to take the win totals up, because with the way Louisville's schedule is this year, most games are going to be winnable, right? So I mean, like if Plummer were to get hurt, you still think with a Brady Allen possibly, or a Pierce or a Doman, but especially with Brady Allen, with him Brom already having the confidence in him, and this is basically going to be his second year now in Brom's system. You have a lot more confidence that you're not going to drop a game because your starting quarterback went out. You've got a lot more confidence. Like, I think this easily takes our win totals up to, it takes us from that possible floor of 7. I think this takes us up to 8 or 9. So that's exactly how I feel. That's my honest opinion.
Yeah, because it's not any shade towards Doman or Pierce, who just joined the program. It was hurt most of the spring. It's no shade toward Evan Conley. No shade towards any of those guys. But Brady Allen may be struggling to pick up the offense. He may make bad decisions at times. We don't know. Obviously he wasn't starting at Purdue. He wasn't projected to start this year either, because I think they got Hudson Card in there to start. But what it does do is this guy has tools those other guys just simply don't have. And that's, so at the very least, I mean, the guy's got a cannon. And as long as he understands the Brom offense pretty well, he's already got a leg up on these other guys besides Jack Plummer. So that's my long story short is you can't just not take this guy. And I'm so happy that we did, because I think early on I thought, well, we may not need a quarterback. And I started to quickly change my tune, especially after watching the spring game. And I mean, this was a big get right here. And I'm gonna go ahead and
Kyle,
the video, because I think we're about done with it.
Kyle, we talked about this on an earlier pod, but I think it was me, you, and Ross, and maybe Connor, I think, was on it. But we were talking about, do we need another QB? And we were like, well, I mean, it'd be nice to have. And then Brom goes out and gets Brady Allen, 4-star QB. He threw for like 12,000 yards in high school.
Well, Josh, that's because he's listening to this pod. He's like,
that was going to be my next.
I got to do it, so I guess I'll go out and do it.
I was going to say, I think you stole my thunder. I was going to say, now it's all but confirmed that Brom listens to us, and we're like, it'd be nice to have a QB, and he's like, all right, bet. Let's see.
Well,
goes out and
if you were
4-star.
Hey,
if
Jeff,
you remember from that,
a stud kicker and a stud tight end.
Yeah, I mean, that would be nice. That'd be nice. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you remember from that same pod, I said I fully expected Brom was going to go get a quarterback. I just, because Brom is not a dude that is going to hand the keys to anybody. He's going to do what's best for the program, and that's how I know we got the right guy. Like, that's part of it. Brom knows. Like, he wants our school and our football program to win at the highest levels. I do think that somewhere, that he's definitely very conscious of Howard's dream of bringing a national championship here to Louisville. I think he thinks he can do that. And he's just not going to hand the keys to anybody. You're going to earn it. He's going to make sure that the roster is where it needs to be able to fulfill Howard's dream and his dream. It's his dream too, I mean, it's all of our dreams. So I knew he was I knew he was not going to just give the keys to anybody. Like, he's going to, and it's going to be like that. Like, it's going to be hard, especially now with NIL. Like, you're going to have guys that you're going to have spring ball from now on, and other teams are going to get tape on them. Essentially, you're basically giving them scouting tape, and then they're going to go out and get guys from these other teams, for positions that they need. So, I mean, you just can't pass up on a player like Brady Allen because we're worried about losing Pierce. I want Pierce to succeed as much as I would want Brady Allen or anybody else here to succeed, but the best person for the job's going to win. They're going to win the job. It's up to them to fight it and figure it out, So, I got all the confidence in the world. We got the right guy leading the ship to do it, to figure out who that's going to be.
Yeah, and like you guys were saying earlier, the competition is what you need. In this day and age, you don't have, if a guy sits on the bench too long, he's probably going to transfer. But, I want the best guy. So, like, whether it be, Pierce or Brady or Plummer. Whoever is the best quarterback is who I want out there playing. And if one of those guys decides they need to seek other opportunities, so be it.
Yeah.
I want Jeff to always be out there recruiting the best possible player at the quarterback position, especially at all times, because it's just too vital in the college football world to not have a top quarterback. And the depth that we had last year was unacceptable.
Oh, hell, it's been unacceptable for 4 years. I mean, and just remember, since we're talking about depth and we're talking about Brom and recruiting the QB room, we've talked about it and said on here, like the development, the recruitment and the development of the quarterback position is something that Brom has helped build. The Broms in general have helped build their careers on. Okay. So both him and Brian were both, successful QBs in college, and in their college coaching careers, they've made a staple on being guys that can develop QBs to get to the league. So you got to remember, we shared it on the pod here, a few weeks ago. Deuce Adams is supposedly trying to finish up everything this fall semester so he can early enroll in January. So that's another piece that we're going to have to watch. I definitely wouldn't think he would have the leg up to beat out of Brady Allen, somebody that's basically 2 years in, and Pierce is going to have a year in. But, that I think we all know that it's shaping up, and we're going to find out more as the summer rolls on and 7-on-7s happen. Deuce Adams is going to be a kid that's going to get a major bump in rankings. That kid's going to get majorly elevated in his ranking. The kid's got a ton of tools to work with. I love the player that I see that he projects to be. I think he'll be a great fit here. And hopefully, if that's what he wants to do, he wants to early enroll. Hopefully he does everything he needs to do to get it done. And he's going to be here in January. It's going to be, they've literally sewed up the QB room and just a few months that the last coaching staff couldn't do in 4 years. It's incredible.
I do want to say, if you guys could, all you guys that are listening, if you haven't already liked the pod, or this episode, I should say, for the algorithm purposes, I do ask that you guys like it. If you guys like what you're hearing, the algorithm helps us bump it up, kind of get it out there to people who may be interested in it. Like I said, we're not in it for donations or anything crazy. We're just four dudes who like talking about Louisville sports. We talk about it all day, every day. But if y'all could like the channel, that'd be great. Or follow the channel, like this episode. We can get a bump, get it out there. It'll hit the Louisville sports algorithm for anybody that may just be, surfing, looking for new stuff. Now, with that being said, I want to continue on recruiting. And it sounds like the June 2nd through 4th week is going to be another one of those big recruiting weekends. We got 2 4-stars I've seen already lined up. One of them is James Madison. He's a 4-star receiver, big guy, 6'4",
5-star name.
Honestly, I've already watched this film. We can pull that up in a little bit as you guys start talking. I can pull it up in the background. But he actually reminded me a lot of a Des White type. I'm not saying Des Bryant. I'm sorry. He reminded me a lot of Des Bryant. I'm not saying he's going to be as good as Des Bryant, but that's who he reminded me of watching his film. He uses his body and he knows how. He can stretch the defense, but he's also a possession receiver. And then I just saw, and I haven't looked much into it, but I believe there's a 4-star running back that's now confirmed to be visiting, who's got a list of huge offers. And I'm not sure. I haven't looked much into that one yet because that just came out while we're on this episode. But it sounds like we got a big week lined up. I saw somebody share in the Discord that Jay Spall, which is Ty's father, was sharing that's going to be a big week next week for football, and he can't wait. I don't know what that means. People were saying, what does this mean? And I don't know. And if he wanted to say, he probably would, but he's probably just letting you know, hey, be on the lookout. So I don't know what that can mean, but it sounds like we got some good news on the horizon potentially. And I know I saw Ty was in here earlier, so I'm sure he knows, but he's not going to say anything he's not supposed to say. So
if we were Cincinnati fans, and Scott Satterfield was our coach, it would, the eyes and sirens emojis would mean that Skyline's bringing the bratwurst back to make conies. That would be pretty big news.
It would probably mean that we landed a 5'11", 195-pound defensive tackle.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that, we've talked about this a lot on the pod, but, if you would have went back and told me that Jeff Brom would continue our recruiting or even maybe exceed what we'd been experiencing for the past year, I would have said bullshit. Like, I would have thought there's no way. And the fact that he is, like, everybody should be so excited for football season. If you're not, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I think we're in for a really fun ride next few years here as well.
Ty's still in here. He says it's nothing related to football. We are hanging a Let's Play Football banner at our lake house. Well, that is big news indeed for you guys.
Big old tiger emoji.
Hey, the Coors Light Saloon, man. That's pretty cool, man.
That is. I mean, hey, that's good stuff. So yeah, it looks like we got a big recruiting weekend on tap. I don't know.
I was going to say, since we were talking about big receivers as well, okay, we continue to hear kind of positive momentum behind the scenes that former local player Milton Wright.
Yeah, good.
It looks like there's things in the works trying to get him academically eligible here at Louisville. If he lands on this Louisville roster and plays this year, guys, we are going to be sick. Okay. And I'm telling you right now, if that happens, I will put another win on that over under for us. Like, I'll be looking at 9-10 wins because that kid's got loads of talent. He's so good. He would fit so perfect with Thrash and Coleman, and he would be just such a great target for Jack Plummer to have. I hope I'm hoping like hell that kid gets a redemption story and it's here at Louisville, because he's good. He's very good.
Ash, what are we looking at here?
This is that 4-star running back where he tweeted out that he'll be visiting Louisville on June the 2nd.
Okay. Yeah.
Derek McFall.
I'm going to see if I can pull up James Madison huddle so y'all can watch that. Well, y'all can keep talking about whatever. I'm going to do this in the background.
Man, one of these days, though, we're going to get, I mean, maybe this kid does end up being that, but like, who was the Texas A&M running back we lost right at the last?
Yeah. What was his name? Ruben Owens.
Ruben Owens.
Yeah.
We're going to land. We are going to land, not him, or maybe we will. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't work out. We bring him here, but we are going to land that kid at some point. And it's going to happen under Brom. Like, there's just not a target that they're afraid to go after. They're going to get somebody like that. And, with the 502 circle expanding, Louisville's NIL is growing. We're in good shape in that regard to fix things in a hurry here. So, man, we've spent an hour and 18 minutes basically talking about conference realignment and how we feel, even though we're not as well positioned as we were 10, 12 years ago, football is in a great state because Brom's here and they're doing everything right thus far. Like, we basically, it's like we feel great about our football program. So that is a good thing. Like, football's driving the conference realignment bus. We're in good spot. We got the right guy here. So pretty football season, I don't want to wish away my summer, but I'm so excited about this football season. It's insane.
Yeah, so this kid here, this is James Madison. He's a receiver that's supposed to be visiting the first weekend of June, and I'm hearing it's down to us in Florida State, and so we've got a good shot at this kid. And like I said, I mean, he may not be Des Bryant. I'm not saying, but I think the game is comparable as far as his big body and the way he uses it.
I like that throw.
The throws are good. I was thinking the same thing when I watched it. It sounds like we're set at quarterback for a while. So unless they're a package deal, but see, like that, catching it with his hands and then moving, and then that nasty hurdle, disgusting. And I mean, but he's deceptively fast for his size, but man, he knows how to use his body.
I like that his high school's using him in the slot. So he's comfortable with running in the middle of the field. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's maybe where I got the Dez thing, because he would catch a lot of routes through the middle, and he's very physical. But
man,
receivers are always so much harder for me because like they're just always just running away from everybody in high school. It's like they're just so much more talented than most of the guys they're playing against. It's always hard for me to really get a grasp on just watching their film.
I try to watch their footwork, and sometimes it's hard to tell.
Like that play right there. I mean, he just blew by everybody.
Yeah, I mean, some horrible defense. But I look at a big body. I look at the speed. I look at the hands. But the main thing is like the route running and, like start and stop ability. Like what he did there I thought he did really good footwork cutting back. But I mean, it's tackling. You never know what you're going to get, really. I mean, we've had guys we thought were going to be studs, and they weren't. And then we've had other guys, like I'll give you an example. Katarius Hicks showed out in spring camp, and while he had some wheels on him, I didn't know he had that in him.
And then we thought we were going to get guys that were going to be studs, and then they run out of bounds on 4th down. And
come on, man.
That was
got back on here, man. You've been gone for several weeks. Pull out the James Quick nightmare.
I didn't say no names. I don't know what you're talking about.
We all know. See, now that kind of catch there, I mean, that's in traffic. That's an impressive catch, and then getting some yards after the catch. So, I mean, there's some tools there at the very least that like a lot of guys don't have. So it's impressive.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting too. Where's this kid out of? What high school? What state?
Oh, I don't know, man. I just watched the film.
Okay, so I'm just curious about the competition. Yeah. I would if I had to assume he's probably down south somewhere, just guessing based on where we've been recruiting heavy since the Brom staff has come in here. But that was a bunch of I'm sorry.
I do it all the time.
Yeah, but the
now I'm gonna know if everyone.
I'm shook now. I can't. I'm like catching myself. I'm shook.
Because you saw that comment somebody left about the
Yeah.
Somebody said we like your pod. It's going well, but if you guys could tone down the a little bit, which I mean, we get it.
I saw that too.
We get it. I appreciate you watching.
Yeah,
we're not pros. We never made out like we're gonna be pros either.
We'll get better as we go. Or not.
I know what I was gonna say. So I think Florida State
Ross again.
Yeah, no. I think Florida State is probably going to have a successful year, but I think there's a possibility for some turmoil there, and things not work out and their season kind of go a little more south than they were expecting. Their over under most sports books is like 10.5 games. I think they're playing all the major competition in the conference this year. So there's a chance they split some of those games. I'm just not a big believer in Norvell. I don't think he's the right guy for Florida State. I think he's kind of Florida State what Sat was to us. He's just somebody he's just like a stopgap kind of. Like he's a fugazi in the fact that he's not going to be Jimbo Fisher and win you a national championship.
A fugazi. Hey, that's the first time we've used that term on the pod. That makes up for any that may have been said before that moment.
Thank you, Rivals Louisville. They're telling us that James Madison is from St. Thomas Aquinas in Fort Lauderdale.
Which that's a big school. There's your competition answer, right?
Yeah. He's playing top competition.
Ty also says he can confirm they are still efforting hard with Milton. So a person who would know said they think it happens, but they're not for sure. And I did see, Ty, that you said that on your site. If you guys are looking for some information that you may not get, just talking to bros on the street and looking at the random Twitter accounts that pretend they know what they're talking about, Greg Swaim. Check out Ty Spalding. Not that I'm going to call anybody out, Greg Swaim. check out Louisville Rivals, cardinalsports.com. Ty's on there. He runs that site, does a good job. Dave Lackford runs a lot of football recruiting. And then you got Travis Graff still works over there with the basketball. He does a really good job. Unfortunately for Travis Graff, if his livelihood depended on Louisville basketball recruiting, he'd be a broke man. He'd be living on the street. So he doesn't have much to tell us right now. But hey, cardinalsports.com does a good job. Keep up with them. Look through the comments here. We got TJ Capers. It says Chester says we got TJ Capers, but then the recruiting services found out he committed to us and dropped him. Yeah, I loved hearing rationalization. Well, we were going to drop him last time, but then we didn't get around to him. And so then because it's like you really had no reason. Nothing happened. I mean, the dude took a couple. He signed up for the spring semester, and you used that against him, I guess, and pretended that made him a worse football player because there was nothing going on. So, Nick Terrell, the Discord crossover is so good. Yeah. I think there were some misconceptions for a little bit, but I'm glad those have been cleared up. But Nick, you're right, and I'm glad you're on there as well, Nick. I know you were with Rivals.
We appreciate you listening, Ty. We really do, man. Thank you so much.
Nick's a big Brom. Nick loves the Brom family. Like, you need someone who's got some background on them. Like, Nick's your guy.
We cannot elaborate on any of that. So let's just move on.
There's nothing to elaborate on. I don't know.
No, there's not. So really, though, for anybody that's just recently joined us within the last 10 or so minutes, feel free to like this episode. It helps the algorithm, helps get us out there. And then feel free to subscribe if you haven't already. If you did not get to listen to the beginning of the pod, we had a Ross Dellenger, Sports Illustrated national football writer. He's a realignment guy. He's one of the very top guys, if not the top guy to talk to. Kind of let us know where the ACC stands, the perception of Louisville within the ACC, and it's things we needed to hear. And I think there's a lot of people that want to gravitate to feel-good stuff that may come from sources that are not as credible. Not that I'm going to call any of them out, Greg Swaim, but Ross is that dude. I mean, if he says it,
Greg Swaim is checked into this chat.
No, he'll be getting booted. I never have liked that guy. Like,
you're Leach.
I don't understand him because he has said stuff that's just not true for like 20 years. He every now and then he pops back up in the news, and it's like nothing that he reports that ever pans out.
Here's a lucky guess.
How does this guy keep popping up?
Here's a lucky guess, Ash. If he gets followers by using clickbait stuff and hot takes, and then claims that he's hearing it from sources, he gets followers. If he gets followers, then they all of a sudden want to hear, well, hey, man, do you do a podcast or maybe some channel like this? Oh, yeah, I'll do it. And here's my Cash App. Here's my Venmo. So it all comes back to that. And, I mean, maybe he's not doing that. I'd be surprised, because there's a difference between just having some incorrect information every great once in a while and just freaking throwing as much crap as you can against the wall and not hardly any of it, if any of it, sticks. So
I think he was
pretending that you're this insider, like do some self-reflection, man. I mean, he knows what he's doing. He knows.
I think he was part of the scout staff at one point, whenever it was called the 247. Before it's 247, there was scout. I think he was part of the West Coast basketball recruiting staff, because I remember a lot of like Southern California basketball recruiting articles and stuff like that. That came from him at the time. But
I don't remember anything about him except when he started hiding. It wasn't just him back in the old days. He had a lot of West Virginia guys, but they're all doing the same thing. I mean, and I don't know. There's probably like an ego gratification of getting thousands of followers that are like hanging on your every word. I mean, I'm not into it, obviously. I don't think any of us are. We don't pretend we know stuff we don't. Now, we may say, hey, this is what we're hearing, but I mean, we're just some dudes.
I think people rather you acknowledge that, it's just a rumor than try to make it up and look like what's going on.
Like, hey, I'm hearing it, but I don't know how true it is,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So somebody in the chat there said, are we talking about Swaim or are we talking about Cardinatic?
Oh, I wasn't gonna say it, man. I'm
boy.
not gonna call him out, but
Yeah, I saw that
Well,
too.
I mean, the person's
anonymous.
anonymous, isn't it? Aren't they anonymous? Nobody knows who they are. So,
he's probably watching right now.
well, thank you for tuning in. We didn't say it. Somebody said it in the chat.
Somebody said it.
Just reading the
By
chat
the way,
comments.
these chat names are way out of pocket, man.
Yeah, I was kind of
God.
embarrassed to put some of them up whenever
I'm
Ross
surprised you
was
did,
on.
man. Some of these are just way out of like. It's like I could tell what's on your all's mind, and it's very scary that pops up, and you're like, you know what? That's the one right there. Tron, good evening, man. I see your comment up there.
I know,
Welcome.
getting in here late, huh, Tron?
Tron, you gotta listen to the first 30 or so minutes at the very least at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ross,
the whole damn thing, but you know.
He was very generous with his time. You know, he told us he had about 15, 20 minutes. He stayed about an extra 10 minutes for us. So
He did.
Yeah.
I was getting a little nervous about my I was like, I don't want to take this dude the whole night, but he, hey, I said it earlier, man, and I'm going to kind of close. I think we've talked about everything. I'm going to close here with what I said a little earlier, man. These guys, Brad Powers, national college football handicapper, well known. He was on last week. Really hyped up Louisville. Really pumped blood through our veins. He didn't have any reason he had to come on here. Nothing to gain for him. Ross Dellenger's a made man as far as the national following he has and the position he's in within the college football world. There's no reason he has to be on here. And so these guys do it out, they go out of their way to do it, and we just appreciate it. I hope we can continue to reel some people in. I mean, I don't know. We'll keep trying. I mean, Ross, you pulled one in. Connor's got one now. Now I feel like I just got to start I got grovel, man.
I got a couple irons in the fire with some former players that we'll definitely be having them on at some point this summer. So
you do,
cool.
You do. But we appreciate anybody that's listening. Like I said, feel free to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications. We're on every Wednesday at 9.
Subscribe, hit those notifications, follow us on Twitter. We got a Facebook page. Follow, give us a follow. So we've got all the links right there on the overlays right there. So give us a follow, and if you enjoy what you like, just we enjoy you being here and spending time with us, because this is what we all love the same thing. We love the Louisville Cardinals. We want to see us prosper. We want to share in those good times together. It is a lot of fun. So we, like you said many times, Kyle, we're not here to monetize anything. We're just fans like you all. We just love to talk about the thing that it is that we all love. So thank you very much.
All right. I'm going to end it. If anybody else have anything to say before we exit out?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, thank everybody for coming on again. Appreciate you guys, and I was glad to be able to be back on the pod once more.
Happy to have you, man.
Yeah, it was nice. Man. Had some live stuff going on. I know,
you have the host voice. I don't have the host voice, man.
Yeah, I try my best.
You have the voice for radio. I just have to pretend.
But just so some of the guys, maybe the regular watchers want to know, I've started my own nonprofit, 501c3 called Opportunity Through Sport. If you guys wouldn't mind checking it out on the web, opportunitythroughsport.org. We're all about trying to provide and improve quality of lives by providing opportunities to participate in sport at all stages of life. So particularly with at-risk youth, helping to bridge those financial gaps and bridge that gap to overcome those obstacles to participating in sport. And then at latter stages of life with senior citizens, a lot of times those in retirement communities and assisted living, a lot of times they have obstacles and barriers of just getting to the ballparks, and their form of participation is often in attending events. So what we're doing with that is we're just kind of trying to help seniors get out to ball games, partnering with the Nolan Ryan Foundation on an initiative next month where we're taking 100 senior citizens out to a Round Rock Express baseball game. And I apologize, kind of taking over the last little bit here, but I just wanted to pub it a little bit. And if you guys would check that out and follow us on our social media channels, I'd appreciate that. So anyway,
Man,
thank you guys. And does anybody got anything else?
I'm
Nope.
good,
Go
man.
Cards.
I appreciate you
Go
bringing
Cards.
that up. Go
Gray
Cards.
Bush out.
All right. You didn't say what you always say, Ross. We can't exit till you say it. Go Cards and
Hey.
what?
Go Cards and go Kroger.
All right, we're out till next time. Next Wednesday, 9 o'clock. Be here.
Peace.
See y'all.